Hi, how you doing? Sorry it's been a while. I know I tend to say that a lot. I've just been really busy with a lot of things. And I took this opportunity this weekend to come down Cape Cod. So I'm sitting out on the deck and just enjoying the breeze and the beautiful weather. And I just figured I would take this opportunity to just come on here and do a quick video, especially after yesterday. So I've been painstakingly working on myself intentionally for a few years now, probably about 5. I think COVID was a upheaval for a lot of people, and usually when that happens, because growth doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? So usually there's something that happens in our life that really kind of stems us to move forward in such a way. But in any case, you don't need to hear all that. And I apologize, but there's a breeze, so it's blowing either my hair and there's like little bugs, but nothing major. Um, so I've healed a lot of things, and because I've been working on them intentionally. And yesterday, it felt like almost like a regression in a sense. But this is what I wanted to come on here about, because I know I did a video not too long ago about how the brain sometimes trips us up, right? Because the brain likes consistency, it likes patterns, it likes repetition and discipline. So it likes that repetition, right? So when we are in the process of changing belief systems or behavioral patterns or even thought processes, okay, the brain will oftentimes fight back and almost try and convince us that this used to work, this worked for us, even if it didn't. But again, the brain has its own set of rules. And I'm not trying to vilify our brains. They're very powerful, and they're honestly trying to work on our behalf. They're trying to protect us. Okay. But in any case, I found myself feeling things yesterday that I haven't felt in a while. And they were more of a negative context. And I'm like, I thought I healed this, or I thought this was worked through already and that I integrated this. However, through a deep meditation, it became very clear to me that that's how integration works a lot of times, is that final purging or that reconceptualizing the situation. Because true wisdom is a combination of our brain, our logic, and our heart, our emotions. Okay? It's a balance. If we live too much in the brain, then we're overanalyzing things, which does not help us, and we're shutting down our emotions as if they're invalid, right? Because maybe we were gaslit enough in our lives to think that our emotions don't matter, but they do matter, because our emotions are always there to teach us something about what we're experiencing. However, if we are someone who's oftentimes in our brain, we might misinterpret what that lesson is. Okay, we might look at it as see how emotional you're feeling? That's true then. You should shut that down because you're too emotional, you're too sensitive, you're this or that, or whatever programming we've either fed ourselves or has been fed to us in our upbringing, in our lives, in our experiences. Just because we think it and believe it doesn't make it true. It's just relevant to what we had repetition on. Okay? So the emotions sometimes, I had a couple of things that triggered some old thought patterns, some old belief systems. The key here is when you're sitting with it differently. I wasn't sitting with it as if it were true. I was sitting with it from a perspective of, why am I sitting with this? I have a different truth to this now. And then it was more of what was difficult for me was which truth is real, right? Did I delude myself into believing differently? Or, and then then it was the whole, because it's important when you can open yourself up to self-accountability and all levels of understanding, not just assume I am right. That's ego. And ego's not bad. We need ego because there are some times where we have to stand in our truth, whatever that may be for us. But make no mistake, most of truth is subjective, based on your perception, which is based on your belief systems, which is based on the information you feed yourself. And nothing highlights that more than right now when we look at, it's a hot topic, but when we look at politics, right? People that are very left versus people that are very right. And I'm talking about the extremes because most people dwell somewhere in the middle, right? I will be forever independent. It doesn't mean I don't hold stands, but I'm never all or nothing when it comes to that. I really am not. So, in all or nothing thinking is just another cognitive distortion because it's very rarely what serves us. So, ego is important, but like I always say, we just don't want it in the driver's seat. So when we sit with our emotions, we really want to sit with, what is this here to teach me? Why is this coming up for me? And be honest with ourselves, not just stuck in our belief systems, but to really be willing to look at other options, not to confuse ourselves, but to really see if there's more to it that we need to grasp. But in any case, right now this isn't going to be for everyone because this is more on the planetary impact, because we got all kinds of tumultuous energy happening here on the planet, our planet, with volcanoes, weather systems patterns, because I think the Earth itself is also being impacted by what's happening in the universe. And there's just a lot of purging going on, a lot of integration, a lot of just really trying to learn lessons so that we can pivot and move forward. Because ultimately that's life, is movement, right? Movement forward. But we want to do so in a way that serves us, serves our goals, creates our happy, right? We don't want to keep going down old patterns that make us feel less than or selfish or this, that. But if you are being selfish, own it so that you can purge that and find a way that's better in alignment. If you find that nobody likes me, but it's always everyone else's problem, there's a pattern there. Learn it, right? Because chances are there's one consistency. That doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you less than or unworthy. It just means there's something there to be learned so that you can better yourself, not change who you are. The goal here isn't to change your personality and be someone you're not. The goal is to be able to be authentically yourself. You want to be authentically yourself because that's where happiness lies. That's where fulfillment lies. That's where growth lies. The things we want to change are behavioral patterns, thought processes, and belief systems that don't serve us, that are not in alignment necessarily with our values and don't serve our goals. If my goal is to have friends, but I keep getting alienated because of my behaviors, then yeah, there's something in there that I might want to work on. Doesn't mean I have to be someone I'm not. It means that I'm growing and trying to be the best me that I can be. I hope that makes sense. Because a lot of people will say, I'm not going to heal or do this or do that. Why should I have to change? Well, we all need to. But not change who we are. Just become our best versions of ourselves. And we can only do that by authentically sitting with who am I authentically? Some people have been wearing a mask so long in their life that they don't even know who they are. They just show up in ego because that deflects and it keeps them safe. Yet they still live in misery and live in that perpetual victim mentality, not realizing they hold the key. I think the Eagles said that, but they were referring to a relationship, but I love that line. Realizing you had the key all along. It's not as easy as that though, but that is the first step. Okay. So back to what I was saying, I was working on all of these things. I thought I had moved beyond a lot of them, but there's a couple things that triggered that in me, like the energy shifted or whatever. And I was like, why am I feeling like this? I thought I got rid of this. And in those moments, it's easy to think that maybe we're regressing or we didn't grow as much as we thought we did or whatever. But I realized it was more of like a bringing it up to look at and to be able to actually then put the logic to it and say no. Because when I was looking at it, I wasn't looking at it from a place of being in that. It was almost like an observer, right? And saying, I thought I learned from this. So when you can sit with something from a different perspective like that, almost as an observer, then you have learned from that. But now it's the integration piece. So that if those little triggers come up again, we don't fall back into old patterns of believing, thinking, behaving. Okay? The key is in the choice. So when you can say, I don't believe like that anymore, so why is that coming up for me? Oh, well, maybe there's a behavior I have to engage in that's different than how I used to. Or maybe it's just feeding a new belief system or a new thought process. Instead of going into lack thinking, maybe it's, all right, this is a moment for me to repeat my affirmations, or remind myself of how other than I am, whatever it is. For some people, it's different for everybody because we're all on our own soul's path. But the other key is to remember our thoughts, our beliefs feed our emotions, especially around things in our external environment. So someone could behave in such a way that could trigger one person and not trigger someone else, because maybe that's not a lesson for you, or maybe that's not something you've been working on. Don't assume that because it feels that bad, that everyone should feel that bad. Okay? Now, I can't tell you that you shouldn't feel that bad. That's gaslighting. At the end of the day, you feel that way for a reason. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and nobody needs to judge you for it. But you don't want to manipulate your whole environment to avoid feeling that way. What you want to do is sit with, what is this here to teach me? If enough people don't believe like you, whether you believe that's right or wrong, it's up to you. The onus is on you to sit with, why? Why is this bothering me so much? What is that teaching me about me? And is there anything that I can show up differently? Not as a different person, but differently with my behaviors, my thoughts, my beliefs, that creates more stability and happiness for me. Okay? And again, it's not about diluting. I know, and I say again, even though we didn't really talk about that here, I have talked about that in past videos. It's not saying bury your head in the sand, because there are times where we want to stand in a certain truth and we want to create change, but we want to do so from a place of peace and calm, not from a place of ego. So ego serves us with regards to being able to work with energies here and on earth. Okay? It does. But again, we always want to run everything through the filter of to what end? I did a different version of this video, and I found myself kind of going down an ego track of, well, this. I'm like, delete. Because then I realized, no, that's not helping, Tara. And why are you doing this if not to help? In all honesty, this isn't about painting pictures or manipulating. It's just about talking about ways to work with our environments, work with ourselves to help us grow and be better. Okay, that's all. So, this is why I always highlight, I'm not better than you. I'm different. You're different from me. You're different from the next person. We are individuals here, and we are all on our own soul path, okay? Our human growth, whatever you want to call it. but we're all just trying to do better. If you're watching this anyway. I guess we've all met those people that aren't trying at all. You know, like those 80-year-olds that haven't matured past 13 or whatever. I don't know. It happens. But even then, I always, if I know them, I know this, that they're working on something. If we're not meant to be non-productive. Now, productive doesn't mean you have to have a 40-hour-a-week job or whatever, a career. Production can be in a lot of different things. It can be. Again, this isn't about judgment. This is about just trying to heal and be better for ourselves and those that we love around us. Because when we put that energy into ourselves, others do benefit. Because maybe we're less snippy. Maybe we show up more understanding or validating or loving, peaceful. God knows we need a lot of that now. We need peace. We need calm. Because I feel like everything in our environment, for the most part, at least that's being sent our way, is to destabilize. When we find that peace and calm within us, you could tell me tomorrow that there's a bomb that's going to drop on my head and I'm going to be okay because I found my stability. Now that might be extreme. Okay. I'm just saying, you know, because people use that sometimes to trigger people, you know, and it's like, stop. That's fear mongering. It's fear based. We live in a world where anything is possible for the most part. But we don't want to jump down certain rabbit holes because all that does is depends on the rabbit hole. But pay attention to the energy or the / emotion. As you know, I use that synonymously. How that feels in your body. Is that destabilizing me? Is that making me nervous? Is that fear? Am I afraid of that? Or is it having a different impact? Okay. So yes, when things make us afraid, especially the ones that don't make other people afraid, we want to sit with that because that is, why am I afraid of that when other people aren't? That is one of the few times that comparisons can help us. We don't want to go down the path of they're better than me, that's why, or they're this or they're that, because nobody's better than anyone else. Ego says it is, based on your belief systems around what makes something better or someone better. That's just judgment. Grow beyond that, because that is what usually keeps people in fear mode. Okay? Nobody is better than someone else. You might make choices that are more aligned and better for you. But there are good choices out there that people make that wouldn't be good for me or good for someone else. That doesn't mean the choice is bad. It's just not for you. Okay? Now, the only thing that I would say would be more on the clearly not good, clearly negative, clearly this, are the things that are out there trying to hurt or use people to manipulate in a negative way. I think we can all agree that that's probably not aligned with anyone's best and highest good. But people will be people. That doesn't mean I have to say I'm a better person, because who knows? Maybe those people do those things and then feed a village, right? Feed a family. I don't know what your intentions are in life, and you don't know mine, other than what we speak, and words are not always truth. Okay? The key is to pay attention to your own lane, not everyone else's, because what works for someone isn't necessarily going to work for you. Have your own boundaries in place, because if you are surrounding yourself with people that are using you or hurting you or this or that, then the key is to ask yourself why. Because there's obviously some kind of a self-worth thing there that says, I deserve this. Even if you don't consciously believe that, this is a key to your unconscious beliefs. What are the patterns, the behaviors, the thought processes, the belief systems that you hold in your life? And are they holding you in a good space or what you would consider a bad space. Those are judgments, yes, but only you can answer that for yourself, and only you can make the changes necessary to create a better future for yourself. Or maybe you're very happy and aligned with your future or your present, which will then feed into your future, because the choices you make today determine the choices you get to make tomorrow, right? So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Don't assume that just because you're feeling something that you used to feel, that you thought you healed, that you're regressing. Feelings, thoughts, beliefs, whatever. Doesn't mean you're regressing if you're looking at it differently, especially from the perspective of, I thought I healed this, or I thought I moved beyond this. It's important. What are the thoughts? And keep in mind, I always talk about mind, body, spirit, okay? Mind is our thoughts, our beliefs, right? Those feed our emotions, our energy. If I'm sitting in a rabbit hole of negative thinking, how do you think that's going to make me feel emotionally? Okay. Sometimes we have to sit with negative emotions so that we can look at what are the thoughts that are feeding this, so that I can work on what is my environment? What have I created in my life, or what has been forced on me? Sometimes that is the case. Life has a way of lifing sometimes, right? But a lot of what we experience are choices that we made. Be mindful of that. And that's not to vilify or to create more negative thinking of, wow, I guess I am this or that. No, it's about what can I do differently then? Is it different thoughts? Is it different feelings? Is it different whatever? Belief systems, which is just an amalgamation of our thoughts. Sit with that so that you can start making other choices that do align with your best and highest good. Okay? But what we think creates emotions. Emotions sit in our body. We can pass that along to people usually through body language and other things, or words, or just feeling so strongly when we're next to someone. But that's something that we also have to be mindful of, okay? When we hold that in, especially if it's a negative emotion, it can create dis-ease, right? Disease over time. Chronic stress can create all kinds of issues in our body. That's chronic stress. Exercise is a form of acute stress, which is good for us. Okay? Don't be all or nothing. There's always shades of gray for the most part. But be discerning and spend time with yourself to know the difference. This is a long video. I haven't done one of these in a while, but I hope it helps, and I'll talk again soon. Bye.